Well, all that praying finally helped because finally we got a game that did end up, ensuring that we start our review not before 10 o'clock. So happy to see that. Thanks to South Africa for making a meal out of that chase, but eventually getting past the line. Maybe making a meal was a bit harsh, but we've got, of course, got Nikhil Bhai, we've got Gurkirat as well to talk about how South Africa went about the business, how Afghanistan went about the business. Gurkirat, let's start with you. I know Nikhil Bhai is going to talk about Azmatullah Umarzai, तो वो एक नाम छोड़ के how did Afghanistan fare today? बाकी के नाम से शुरू करते हैं हम लोग.
See, they'll rue their batting. How they lost regular wickets at intervals was a good innings, and the likes of Rashid, Mujib, and Noor. Rashid and Noor could show that there were runs for the taking over here. Uh, on the whole, I feel given how the World Cup has panned out, Afghanistan will not end up winners or as semi-final as champions or the semi-finalists, but they will, in my view, they are sort of the real winners of this World Cup because they got to know a lot more. I feel about them, and they also got to know, okay, what are the areas that they have improved upon. Batting intent is one thing we have seen that they've worked upon, so they'll realize that okay, this is a workable area. It's not something that they cannot work upon. Then when it comes to their fielding, they'll know that there's a massive improvement there. You saw that in the last game. There's the game versus New Zealand today also. Shahidi got to that ball but couldn't grab it. So those are the areas that they can work upon. And yeah, I feel today somehow maybe if Noor and Mujib could have taken a cue from Nabi in terms of what the pace to bowl at, they could have had South Africa in much more trouble than what they did eventually.
Interesting that. And Nikhil Bhai, Gurkirat spoke about Nabi and how even I'll add Rashid's name as well to that. Compared to that, how would you rate Mujib and Noor's performance today? Noor in particular, I observed Gurkirat speaking about how he wasn't attacking the stumps enough and he was bowling a bit too short, for the surface's liking. Would that be a fair assessment of how Noor bowled and in extension how Mujib also bowled?
Yeah, I think right to the tournament we've seen Afghanistan missed their lines and lengths, and again, it's not the first time that it has happened. But like as as Paji said, you kind of feel that these are the circumstances where you feel the likes of Nabi and Rashid can be more, I don't know, involved in terms of if they feel that something is not going right, then you can possibly look to change. Because in the start, the first spell that Noor bowled, there was help, which you saw with Rashid and how he got class in. But the same threat or the bite you did not quite see coming through from Noor's end. And there were a few balls which Noor did beat the bat, and even well, Klassen, I think he beat one really well. But you want that, and again, it is harder with wrist spin, completely taken. But I think with time, Noor will grow in that role. I think today they really missed a lot more. I wouldn't say new ball wickets as such, but I felt the lack of options in terms of they had they had to keep bowling the spinners, because I also thought that they should have gotten paces earlier. But we heard on air that both Naveen and Azmatullah had to go off the field because of injuries and other stuff. So I don't think that helped them planning, but I still think they did well to stretch the game both with bat and ball. Because with the bat, as Paji rightly said, I think today is the day where both Ibrahim and Gurbaz will be kicking themselves. Okay, they both got starts and they both got out not in a manner that you'd say a set batter would want to get out. Maharaj was, yeah, it ठीक है पहला ball spell का, and it is something Maharaj has done very often. He strikes early and then that just really puts a lot of pressure. I think it happened against India as well. गिल को पहली बार में आउट किया था उसने तो and that just really sets the tone, right, for the bowler. Can now I'm happy to bowl where I want to, and we discussed about Maharaj coming good, so that happened. So they learn, as Paji said, they've got a lot more out of it, a lot more than what all of us thought of them combined. So I think that is something that's really good for them. Okay, they have new heroes to look back to and not just the same old names.
Yeah, since you mentioned that it's not just the same old names, we cannot not talk about Umar Rizai's batting performance today. Preview mein bola tha ki, 256 runs. He had a couple of 70s as well before today. Almost got to his ton, to his maiden World Cup ton, maiden ODI ton, if I'm not wrong. how would you rate that knock, Nikhil bhai? Because they were what, 116 for 6, 160 for 7, and from there for Afghanistan to even have been able to reach 244 was a commendable effort in it itself.
बिल्कुल, and you just kind of feel windy. Oh, 5 मिनट पे, शाबाश. Thank you. Ritual done.
Before Nikhil goes, I just have one line to say. Umarza is the reason you are doing this review at 10 p.m. and not 8 p.m. Now Nikhil can.
No, see, Omarja took care of all of us combined there, which is good. And it's actually, I was just saying, it feels vindicated that there are some people who you've seen and you feel, this guy has what it takes. And I feel it's also good that he got to bat at the right spot. I think that number 5 spot was something that suited him perfectly well so far in whatever games that you've seen. Be it the chase against Sri Lanka, it was where he looked comfortable. Even today, he was able to combat whatever was bowled at him. And of course, he's young, he'll grow, but there is so much to be happy about that. He's able to, because you didn't see any rash shots. The shot that hit of Makram, that was so pleasing to see. Yes, he's bowling to cover up overs. He takes that matchup on, hits the six. So that is the next. We've talked a lot about Rahmat Azmatullah. Who's the next batch? Like with Bangladesh, I'm hoping Azmatullah can be that leader in terms of key player who continues to come good. And again, the expectations will not be कि भाई हर game में 100 मारे या 4 wicket ले, but if he's able to play crucial roles, because right through his 97, you felt he was in control of most things, and that is what you want from a guy who's still very new in the system. In that regards, he's been playing ODI cricket for a while now for Afghanistan, but I think just very pleased for him that hopefully he can now build on this and then keep churning in more performances, and hopefully एक दिन नया ball आएगा, which जब आएगा तब आएगा.
Fair enough. Gurkirat, your X factor today was Jidal Kurtzi, something both of us had also agreed upon. Yeah, he could be someone who could sort of be the differentiator between the two sides, given how Afghanistan haven't faced enough, high pace. And that did end up happening. We saw him take a brilliant 4-4. But how do you think Afghanistan, like going forward, how do you see them getting used to this? Because this is something that has to happen intrinsically, right? Being able to face high pace, being able to face short balls at high pace, all of these are things that cannot really sort of be taught. Like, it just comes over years of practice of facing such bowlers. So how do you think Afghanistan can sort of improve this deficiency?
Yeah, they'll have to play a lot more of top flight cricket. Maybe get players who, try and make. I know it's not really possible for the board to do it, but they'll have to hope that players get contracts in leagues, and from there on they can work on those skills. Playing high pace and playing wrist spin are two things that only will come by playing a lot more. We have seen how these two skills have become like a cheat code whenever you are playing associate nations. And today, because of that factor, I felt Rahmat at the time that he got out could have also been slightly avoided, because yeah, Kodzi against those lower order, Ali Khil actually started off well. He played some two very good shots versus Ngidi. One was the four that he hit over mid off, and then the six. But that short ball from Kodze, which went for a wide, it just softened him up, and that's something which the commentator said on air. So again, you cannot really criticize Ikram Ali Khil a lot, because he's hardly got a chance to bat in this tournament. Got that 50 versus England, and I think even in that game he got softened up by one of the pacers. I'm not sure if it was Wood or if it was someone else, but at that point of time he showed the maturity, or I don't know, maybe it was someone else batting with him who told him that, okay, take it easy, you will get there. So it's uh, see, today you will really have to say that in many ways Afghanistan batters just got outskilled, and that can happen sometimes, when you come up against a bowler like Maharaj, especially when you struggle against left arm spin, or you don't have enough left-handed batters, and then raw pace is something that is difficult to handle, even for the better or the best batters out there. So it's okay.
Yeah,
It,
and just to add to Paji's point about batting versus a particular type, you've seen Pakistan also struggle versus left arm wrist spin, and it is something that you heard from Misbah as well in that in the show online, that they don't have such options in the domestic circuit. So if you're not going to play them at all, you will not develop that habit or muscle memory. Ke, this is how I'll look to pick him, whether it is of the hand or what are the things that I need to look out for. So you can only watch videos as much as you want, but till you play them day in, day out, whether it is nets or whichever way it is, because I think he also discussed about getting a few very young domestic spinners out for nets, and even they troubled the Pakistan international batters. So it just tells you that, and again, this is something we discussed while discussing India's test rules as well, that you need to get back to that system which is then having those options, because until you go out there and play them in those conditions, only then will you be able to figure out, okay, now what are my options. And though I don't feel that should be the case for Afghanistan to not play left arm spin well, but I think that is just the class of the opposition on that day, that they're able to plan well. So I think with time they will definitely get better. And as Padi said, most of them are playing everywhere. Gurbaz is playing everywhere. I'm definitely expecting Ibrahim to get a lot more gigs now. And Azmatullah, to bhai, I can't wait for 19th December.
Interesting. Just out of curiosity, though, which side do you think is he
Okay,
going with?
let's hope that he goes to a side that he goes to a side that can develop him and then use him well, and not to not and he shouldn't go to franchises that scar him for life.
You could have said not
Again,
to Delhi, Hyderabad, and Punjab, but
Ex-
ठीक है, हम लोग आगे बढ़ते हैं. No names taken. No names taken. Gurkirat hasn't taken any names in his defense. That's all. But yeah, I mean, probably for the first time ever on any of these live shows, will I sort of say, कि, yeah, I'm fine if RCB don't go for him because we already have a like for like player in David Willey. We also have Hazelwood. So ठीक है, I feel he's better off going to a side that can actually play him. So I'd be more than happy to see him in the IPL. Definitely loved what I saw of him, and always heartening to see players from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, all these. I wouldn't say associate, but all these sort of what's considered to be bottom tier nation, so to say. Not by any means in terms of skill, but that's how apparently cricket works. Always love to see players from such nations to come and light up the IPL. Before I forget, rather, let's just briefly go through the match summary itself. Omarzai, of course, with a fantastic 97 in the first innings to help Afghanistan reach 244. He also ensured Afghanistan played out their 50 overs, which was also crucial. Something we'd spoken about earlier, that one objective that Afghanistan has been trying to fulfill with each game was to bat out 50 overs, to understand that they're here to play ODI cricket. And that was good to see again today. Second innings, of course, Van der Dusen with a fantastic half century played a very crucial role of ensuring one end was held up. He did not give away his wicket. He knew that the scoring rate never really went above even 7, if I'm not wrong. So he knew that he didn't have to sort of take too much pressure, just play aram se. Quinton de Kock with a nice solid start in the beginning before he got out trying to reverse sweep Nabi for some reason, something Nikhil Bad also mentioned in the preview. And then Peklo Kwayo doing the finishing job. Again, another name that Nikhil Bhai had mentioned, that he could be someone who could sort of change the game, because I know this was his first game, but that did not necessarily hurt his chances. He did do well. In fact, let's take a few comments before we move on to the first segment. Kanan starts. Let's start with Kanan's question. Sorry, he says South Africa would be concerned on their chasing game, and they might play Peklokwaya in place of Ngidi in the semis to increase their batting depth. Gurkirat, let's start with you. What do you think? Is there any merit to that argument?
Given how Ngidi has gone, especially in the second spell or in the latter half of the innings, uh, there should be concerns. But see, playing Felkuayo and expecting full 10 overs quota out of him is just asking for too much. Because if you are playing him in place of Ngidi, then you have to get overs out of Markram also. So a lot of it will depend upon what the pitch is, because it's going to be a risk. If you feel that the pitch is going to aid some spin, then maybe Markram can come in, because otherwise it's difficult to do that. And yes, while it may increase the batting depth, but just the way South Africa are chasing, you just feel even if they increase their batting depth, it, it can't be said that they'll chase comfortably, because today they were 139 for 4, chasing 250 odd. Had they if they had to chase 270, 280, you really can't say if it would have been solved by batting depth. And Actually, it's been very peculiar how South Africa have batted, because when you see teams who don't have batting depth, they prefer chasing rather than wanting to bat first, because they have an idea of how to pace their innings. But South Africa, I feel, when they are batting second, maybe it's a function of, I don't know, pitches getting slightly slower or tougher by the time the second innings happen. But they seem to be sort of not really sure how they want to pace it. Do they want to go extra hard so that they can account for the pitch slowing down and batting getting tougher, or do they want to preserve their wickets? So I think they're still caught up in how do they want to really approach it. It's something that I have been able to make out, because batting first, it's pretty clear. We are okay being 45 for 0. We are okay even if we don't, even if we are, say, around 90 to 100, just for the loss of one wicket by the end of 20 overs. We have enough confidence that we can score 180 or 200 runs in the next 30, and we can still, or maybe even more. So I don't know, really, that why is it this happening. Maybe Nikhil can chip in on this.
Yeah, Nikhil bhai, you can add to that. And also, since Paris has something similar to say, he also says Klassen is bang or bust in run chases. Understandable if the target is 300 or above, else totally unreasonable. What do you think? Because Gurkirat also alluded to the fact that when they are batting first, they have the clarity in terms of how they want to approach their innings. But while chasing, that doesn't seem to be the case, which is sort of ironic and counterintuitive, right?
But I think there are a lot of factors, because I think the perception and your own image of your skills also plays a part. Like, just to explain that, we've seen sides in the past where they don't like to chase, they like to bat first. We've heard captains saying we don't want the batters to bat under the pressure of a run chase, which again, it might just be the way things work for them. But if you actually look deeper in terms of numbers, you'll see Babuma, Klaas and Miller, they all have better numbers chasing. But the problem for me for South Africa has been Bavuma. He has just not taken off. And that is then putting a lot of pressure on Quinton. You saw that today as well. That a slow start, not getting the boundaries. I had actually no idea why Bavuma came out to bat to open, because you could see him hobbling even in the field in the first innings. And there were communication errors in the running in the start of the chase as well. Quinton might have gone had Noor's throw just been a bit more quicker earlier. So Bauma, not see, when you have thin batting lineup, or say batting only till numbers 6, you need your top 6 to be really through. And if one of them is not going to click, then you can see the others going to take that brunt. K, let's bat deep, or let's take a lot more time. Which you also saw when they bat first, that even in that England game where they lost Quinton early, you saw Riza and RVD take their time, because they know they can't lose too many wickets quickly. But in chase, what happens is, ek to it's already not your comfort zone. So you feel okay, this is something that hasn't worked for us. Now how do we go about it? If you lose early wickets, then, and there is some help for the deck. I think decks have also played a part, be it the Netherlands game or this one. You saw the ball hold up on Markram as well. You saw the ball hold up on Miller as well. Nabi just bowled there, and again, Nabi is Nabi for a reason. So President, hey, he knows how to vary and get that, induce that mistake. So I think it's a combination of a lot of those factors. Okay, if you have an opener going clicking, then you're because at no point of time they were ahead of the game. They were always there or thereabouts. कि ठीक है, will, क्योंकि आपका तुम्हारा required 100 5 का ही है, तो you feel कि नहीं, we don't have to take too many risks. So you are starting okay, but then as soon as spinner came on, I think they also expected due, which did not quite come through. So then that also makes you stuck. कि भाई, now what are my release options in that sense? So I think in that sense today the knock from Andile and RVD will be very, very crucial, क्योंकि RVD has forgettable numbers. He's averaging in low, I mean 18 के 17 के 18 का उसका average उसका chase. So this is a good knock for him, because we've discussed about spin being the trouble for him. But because the target was such, he was able to bat deep, and you saw Andile was able to take that risk again. He also took versus Naveen only. So it is that battle that they have to fight. Ke, who do we take on? When do we take on? And what they will really feel happy about is कि दो दोनों venue है. Eden's का तो पता नहीं, but Mumbai should be good to chase if they come at the right time. So you have to play out the पहला 15 over. If that doesn't happen, तो फिर it will be the same. But you saw that with Maxwell as well, right? कि Once you come in later in the stages, even Cummins ke samne, you didn't see anything happening. So I think it's a combination of lot of those factors, and just South Africa not being comfortable with that option. Ke, let's chase. Sorry if it didn't make sense, but that's what I felt.
As of now, I think South Africa are playing at Eden in the semis.
In fact, just one more thing to add. I do agree with what Nikhil Bhai said, and this is something even I thought of. Personally, another opinion that I would like to add, in sort of taking that conversation forward is skill wise, pretty much all of Afghanistan's top 9, top 10, even, I mean, top 10, kya bolta hu, first 10 batters, then there's not a lot of difference skill wise. I really mean that. Like, up until Noor Zadran, like, kya hai surname, bhai? Noor
Ahmed.
Ahmed, sorry. Huh. And that's why you see their top order always crumbling against the new ball. But whoever survives the new ball, middle overs or death overs, आराम से खेल जाते हैं. Anyone is there, even if it's Rashid, they know how to play once that new ball phase is taken care of. It's that first 10 15 overs that Afghanistan, despite having good openers and despite sort of in some sense front loading and all of that, this is always how I've looked at it. Because even if Rahmat Shah and all, if they are there post the 30th over, this is something I was actually seeing yesterday or the day before. Rahmat Shah, even Hashmatullah, if they are there 30th over or post that, they have the tendency to sort of stick on. I'm not saying they'll score runs or they'll accelerate, but they don't get out. So
Yeah,
maybe
and
that's
and they
something.
also got a and they also got a better rate. If you see, if
Yeah.
you compare those numbers as well, they all start. So they are actually, if you see, again, uh, they are all हमारे ज़माने के ODI batters where they are happy to take their time, because that's the template that has worked for them over the years. So they can't really just go out of it. So it will be interesting to see if South Africa are able to find a way that works for them in a chase correspondingly. Okay, this is how we are planning the chase, because I'm really keen to see. I think Riza could come in. Uh, I don't think Bavuma should not think about it too much, but I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's a
Interesting.
possibility.
That's a very interesting shout. That. Meanwhile, guys, make sure you're hitting the like button if you haven't already. Also, make sure you've subscribed to us if you haven't already. Let's quickly move on to the first segment right now. We'll keep the chat going on, of course. But right now, the first segment, which of course is top performer. I mean, once again, a fairly obvious choice in terms of who the top performer for the day is. Let me just have the graphic on. Of course, it's Rasi Fanditusen. Gurkirat, let's start with you. 76, an unbeaten 76 off 95 balls. Again, might not have been the most aggressive innings out there, or might not have been very pleasing to the eye and all of that. But it would really sort of give a lot of hope and a lot of heart to South Africa moving into the semis, because this is something South Africa had wanted to do. Chase properly, chase clinically. This might not have been as clinical as they would have liked, but this is still far better than what they did versus Pakistan. What are your thoughts on Rasi's innings today?
Yeah, see, I think he really did not need to be aggressive, especially once it became 139 for 4, his job was to bat through. I think, if you look at the last game that they played, which was versus India, Rasi was still trying to ensure that he bats through that phase where the ball is moving around, because he had still played 31, 32 balls was not really scoring runs. He only scored 13. So on that front, I think what South Africa would like is that he's still willing to bat it out and try and arrest a collapse, which is important when Bavuma is not doing it, or Quinton's getting out early, because if he also goes out early, then you are really asking too much of Markram, Miller, and Klassen. And honestly, you'd feel that even Markram hasn't been as consistent as what you would like. In that Pakistan game, he was batting very well, but he still offered chances, and all of us remember how he got out. Today also got a start, but still got out. So in that regard, if there is one player who South Africa will not really mind taking his time, or going at a slower rate, is Rassi, because he just makes sure that the entry points of other batters are getting sorted. And today, he was, even when when Noor was coming in and he was bowling, he was intent on not getting out, because he knew that at some point of time, as the game is going to get closer, more or less Afghanistan will blink first, and there would be opportunities to for him to find the boundary. So a very calculative innings. Like you said, not pleasing to the eye because it required a lot more graft than aggression. But it is okay. It's something that we again discussed in the last game, that when I was talking about the Shreyas and Virat partnership, that you need someone to graft. And if they are going to play at Eden and the pitch is going to be very similar to how it was in the India game or the other games that happened, and if they are batting first, you need Rassi to stick around and graft. Even if he does a 70 ball 50, on a pitch where batting is difficult, you take it, because it will then allow your other big hitters to come at the right spot. And what it also does is it takes over out of your better bowlers, because the opposition will try to dismiss him. So if he's able to play out those bowlers, it also means that the best, your remaining half or your hitters do not have to play those better bowlers. So it's a very important innings for South Africa in the larger context.
Yeah. So he was a top performer for South Africa, not for the match. Sorry.
Of course, the Amar Zai क्या होता है भाई? Umar Zai fanboy had to come in. Umar Zai fan. That's how I'll put it. But Nikhil bhai, a couple of very interesting points that Gurkirat mentioned about Fande Dusan. He was my player to watch out for in the mega preview from the South African side, and he was someone that even you were looking forward to watching, and you were also hoping he has a good World Cup. How would you rate his World Cup? Because he's had what, 2 centuries, 250s, a couple of decent starts that he didn't really convert, but overall, all in all, happy with his performance in the World Cup, or do you think he could have done more?
Maybe my expectations were more, but again, what I'll be very very aware of is the conditions haven't been quite same. So it's one thing playing bilaterals and getting slightly similar conditions where it's kind of monotonous in terms of what to expect and what not to. But I think the conditions across venues have been such that you have to had to adapt. So that's what I'll give it to him. But it's also where you feel कि अगर आपको start मिला है, so you need to get bet. I mean, you are good enough to convert them. So I think that's where he'll probably feel that he probably should have kicked on more and gotten converted some of those starts into bigger scores so that it helps South Africa. But he'll take this World Cup any day, handy 100 right up top to set the tone, and then he had enough starts, so he'll take it. But I think we discussed about his frailties versus spin. But again, as Paji said, it's also to do with the role that is played. That with the lineup such, you really want him to bat deeper. So he's happy to compromise on that aspect. But again, like he knows कि अगर वो set रहेगा, so he'll be able to make up for it, and that's what is done. So good on him. Two crucial games coming up for him to do well again.
Oh, Nikhil Bhai is even more confident than most South African fans. 2 crucial games coming. Interesting.
I
Already
before
sort of.
I said India South Africa before we started game one. So I
मानता हूँ,
mean,
वो
just
तो
sticking
मानता
to
हूँ
it.
मैं. Yes, yes. Fair enough. Okay, let's quickly move on to the second and the last segment, of course, which is Turning Point. चलो finally a game at least where we can think about कि हाँ turning point क्या क्या हो सकता है. There are multiple cases to be made for turning points. Let's start with Gurkirat. Gurkirat, what according to you was the turning point of the game today?
You'd have to say the phase between overs 21 to 30, where Afghanistan lost 3 wickets. Getting, I think, when Rahmat Shah got out, that is where you knew that now Afghanistan could really struggle to get to 250, and they just got to about 244, 245, because then it just left Omarzai to do a lot. Ikram Ali Khil had not batted a lot in this tournament. Then Nabi also hasn't really batted a lot in this tournament, and Nabi is not someone who you can always consistently rely on for runs. If you're looking at him for big hits, yes, he can provide you that, but building an innings is something that you really can't rely on him a lot. So that that partnership between Rahmat Shah and Umarzai had to stretch a lot more, so that whenever Nabi could come in, or Rashid could come in, or then Noor would come in, those guys could start and could start hitting from whatever positions they were walking in. So I feel that phase really pushed Afghanistan back a lot.
Interesting. Nikhil bhai, what about you? Do you agree with Gurkirat's turning point, or do you have something else in your mind?
I think it was a lot earlier. I think the moment they lost both their openers, I think you pretty much felt that this will not be more than 250 because they have been their backbone. Them batting deep has led to whichever big scores that they have posted in the recent times, and it was because I expected Maharashtra to trouble Rahmat Shahidi. So again, this was exactly how I visualized the game going. Ke if the openers don't bat deep, because you saw that with Gurbaz as well, that he was happy to take Rabada, and you need that kind of batter to bat deep while batting first, because then that batter is going to give you the cushion that that Rohit has been giving to India. Okay, the one opener giving you a quick, very impactful start, so that the rest of them are able to bat at their pace. So I think, and they also got out very, very quickly in terms of, you saw one Gurbaz going out at 8.1 and then Ibrahim going out at 9.3. So दो ओवर में both openers getting out, उसके बाद से I think they were always going to play catch up, क्योंकि रहमत सईद, they would have taken time, got them going, yes, fair, but I think they still might not have ended up with that cushion score. So it might still have been enough, who knows, but वो cushion score तो नहीं आता.
इंटरेस्टिंग मेरे लिए तो काफी एंड में था. मेरा टर्निंग पॉइंट तो वाज
अच्छा.
एट द 45th ओवर ऑफ द सेकंड इनिंग्स. 33 to 1 of 30. I really felt that Afghanistan were in with a sniffing chance there. Unfortunately, Naveen ul Haq went for a six. Andile Peklukwayo somehow managed to sort of loft one over mid off, and that ended up crossing the fence. Chakka gaya. Then the very next over, Noor Ahmed with absolutely no control bowled a couple of long hops, bowled a couple extremely wide outside off stump. The game was done in those 2 overs. I felt what they went for 19 in those 2 overs, 14 of the last three, the game was pretty much done. I felt that if Naveen somehow had managed to eke out a wicket or two in that over, then probably the game would have turned on its head in Afghanistan's favor. Not to be the case, but again, definitely a lot of positives for Afghanistan going out of the tournament. Like Harsha Bhogle mentioned, they should really go out of this tournament with their heads held high. Something very proud to be of, because we've spoken about this multiple times before, how in the 2019 World Cup they sort of looked threatening enough to win a game without really winning one game. Finally, them sort of crossing the line, crossing. It is one of those mental things where once it happens, you sort of get used to it, and then one turns to two, turns to three, and they're ending this World Cup with 4 wins. Something not a lot of us expected. I did, and I remember Nikhil and Avnish did ridicule me during the Monday Night Live. So I'll
You
have to.
said 4 wins.
Yep, I did say 4 wins during the first Monday Night Live episode of the World Cup. You were in there,
भाई
and
जब आप see even a बंद clock भी आपको दिन में 2 बार सही टाइम बता देगा.
when you said even and took a pause, na, I knew यही आने वाला, यही
No,
आने वाला.
because in the mega preview, I don't remember you saying that Afghanistan will
I didn't say
will.
4 wins, but I did say I'm hopeful. I said they'll end eighth. So I didn't say they'll have 4 wins, but I was hoping they'll do good against Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Netherlands. They did get 2 wins out of those three. Unfortunately, वो Bangladesh का भी हो जाता तो काफी सही रहता. Anyway, let's quickly take a few viewer comments before we wrap this up. Lot of interesting questions. Let's start with Rajesh here. He says, Paji, do you think they'll leave Engidi out versus Australia in the semi-finals, considering Eden's pitch, and they might need two spinners there? What do you think, Gurkirat?
We discussed this. See, it could happen, but it's going to be a risky move because you cannot expect a lot of control from Shamsi. And if today's game forces them, or makes them want to play Felkuayo, then it might become even more risky. Also, you have to keep in mind that while Kurzi has been very good in taking wickets in the middle overs, he also can struggle with control sometimes. So they can, it's not something which is completely out of the picture, but it is going to come with risk attached, especially if Shamsi is going to bowl like he bowled versus India, where he was bowling to imaginary left-handers out there when there were two right-handers batting. So it's a risk, but against Australia it's a risk worth taking. But yeah, it's it is that kind of a move which would look great in hindsight if it works out, and it would look absolutely rubbish in hindsight if it doesn't. So it's just that kind of a move. I would not really criticize that move if South Africa go ahead with it, and even if they don't go ahead with it, I'll understand why they wouldn't.
Fair enough. One last question before we wrap this up. Kushal Shah asks us, would you choose a Hafid Bavuma in the team for the semis or leave him out? I want to ask this to Nikhil Bhai because he already mentioned that he would pick Hendricks. So Nikhil bhai, do you actually see this happening, come the 16th of November?
Similar to what Paji said, I won't be surprised if he plays, but I'll be happily surprised if he is not playing, because I think Riza has, in the two games that he's played, he's been very very different to what Bauma has been so far. So again, unless you think Bauma will suddenly find form against Australia, great, 100% full Jai Mata Di support, koi load nahi. But I think even if it was Bauma also, he'll know that Riza is batting better. But again, it is South Africa, it is semi-final. Selections have been debated for decades. So I just hope they get it right. And there is sound logic there, because even the Lungengiri aspect, he's bowled well, but in patches. And even today, you saw him bowl the slower one. I mean, it's been said and said and said and said and said, and I can't stop saying said, because it struggled. It happened versus Netherlands also, and Australia will not leave it out if they have wickets in hand. So whatever they do, they have to plan really well. If they want to play Samshi, use him differently. But yeah, eventually, as long as there is sound logic, should be fine.
And this Lungi Ngidi problem of bowling slower ones is not just been restricted to this World Cup. It's been there around for some time now. For some reason, even Rabada got stuck with that issue of wanting to bowl slower ones at the death.
Delhi Capitals कुछ नहीं क्या बोला कुछ बोला गया
नहीं बात
I
तो
was I was going to bring that up. ठीक है, निखिल भाई ने
so
कर दिया पूरी कसरत
but yeah,
पूरी कर
if Babuma's not fit, then he shouldn't play. Simple as that. If he's fully fit, he should, because I do believe that he's had enough credit in the bank. He scored runs, and being the captain and everything, should back himself. But if he's not fit, then he shouldn't take that risk at all, because then it becomes even worse. So you just have to hope that uh, there aren't any shortcuts in terms of playing half it, especially if you, because South Africa don't have batting depth. You really cannot afford. If Babuma was batting like Quinton, then maybe you've thought, okay, can risk it, even if he can survive the power play and give you a 30 ball 45, okay, we'll do the job. But half fit, not in form, makes no sense.
All right, let's wrap this up. Just one last thing. Neural hacks with Vasant being adamant ki bhai talk about this. I'll sort of let Nikhil and Gurkirat off the hook right now, because these are exactly the kind of things that we will be discussing during the next Monday Night Live episode. So do tune into that. Just one thing. All of us, of course, are really disappointed and genuinely shocked about this. Definitely not the kind of turn of events any of us were expecting. But yeah, this is what is going to happen if there is going to be government interference. That's what I leave it at. And yeah, it is time to wrap up the review now. I know Nikhil bhai's friends are right now, friends, cousins, I'm not sure, but they are right now adamant. वो शायद बाहर खड़े होके ready होंगे कि भाई आजा चल. So yeah, it is time to say goodbye to all of you. Of course, a happy Diwali to all of you. May the festival of lights light up your lives as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you come in tomorrow at 9:55 a.m. sharp. It is a double header, so of course we'll be doing a preview of both the games before the first game starts. So make sure you come in, you tune in at 9:55 a.m. sharp. Thank you so much. That's it from all of us. Have a great day, have a great night, and a happy Diwali once again.
Happy Diwali, cheers.